My guest today is the incomparable Dr. Hyla Cass. She is a leading expert in the area of integrative psychiatry. She helps people heal depression and anxiety using nutrition, lifestyle, and other targeted natural therapies. She's the author of many books, is widely recognized in this field, and has changed countless lives. You don't want to miss this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Next Level Healing. My guest today is a nationally acclaimed innovator and expert in the fields of psychiatry and integrative medicine. She is known as the drug-free psychiatrist for helping individuals overcome anxiety, depression, and other brain imbalances. She also helps people safely and comfortably taper off psychiatric medications using targeted nutritional supplements. As a frequent media expert on national print, radio, and television outlets, she educates and speaks to both medical audiences and the public. She is the author of several popular books, including Supplement Your Prescription, Natural Highs, 8 Weeks to Vibrant Health, The Addicted Brain and How to Break Free, and Your Amazing Itsy Bitsy Guide to Cannabis. She currently has a virtual practice based in Southern California. Welcome, my dear friend, Dr. Hyla Cass.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I am so impressed with the work that you do. There are so many people struggling with coming off of psychiatric medications. Let's take a look at that in general. Right now, anywhere between 16.5 and over 20% of the U.S. population is on psychotropic medications. What are your thoughts on that?
It's not good. It's not good because as soon as somebody says something about their mood to a doctor, any doctor, doesn't have to be a psychiatrist, it could be their GP, their internist, their dermatologist, they get a prescription for an antidepressant. And nobody is looking under the hood. No one's looking at, well, what's going on with that person? You know, not simply they have problems in their life or they have post-traumatic stress disorder, but what's going on biochemically? And that's what I do. That's what you do. You know, we really need to look at the deepest root cause. And the deepest root cause lies in our chemistry. But this isn't going to be a chemistry lesson. It's what I'm really doing, what I'm going to do now and what I do in my practice is I empower people to discover what they're feeling, how they're feeling, and things they can do to very quickly turn it around every time.
And I love that you look more at symptoms than blood tests, although that has its uses for sure. But tell us about how the brain is the master control panel for our feelings, our skills, our willpower, our behavior, our cognition, our perceptions, mood. There's just so many things that the brain's in charge of. Help us break that down.
The brain weighs about 2% of the body weight and uses over 20% of the nutrients, oxygen, and all the goodies. Very, very biochemically active. And we need to take good care of our brain, which we don't. So I'm basically a brain doctor. You know, the brain's an organ and it's part of the whole body. So if you have, for example, if you have low blood sugar, it's not only going to affect your energy, but it's going to affect your mood. You're going to have anxiety. You're going to have depression. All of these things go to the brain and affect the brain. So we need to understand how the brain works and what we can do to modify it.
And what do you think most doctors are missing? Because you're right. People go to their doctors. They say, my mood doesn't feel right, and boom, they get a prescription for something. What are most doctors missing out there?
They're missing out on what the basic chemical process is of mood. And it's kind of ridiculously simple. You know, we are what we eat. The food we eat, particularly proteins, break down into something called amino acids. amino acids then go to form brain chemistry messengers called neurotransmitters. I'm not going to get too sciencey, but we should know the word neurotransmitter. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter. Dopamine is like the dopamine rush we get when we get a ping on our computer, on our phone, whatever. Serotonin is what happens when people are depressed, hence the SSRIs, the serotonin reuptake inhibitor drugs. GABA, which is the calming neurotransmitter. We have all these things that we make our feel-good chemicals, and sometimes we can't make them because we don't have enough of the source material. Either we're not eating enough protein, we're not digesting it properly, or because of stress. Often with stress, you get low in serotonin, it gets depleted. So rather than covering it over with an SSRI, which is fooling the brain into thinking there's more serotonin, the SSRIs wear off and they end up depleting you of serotonin. And so you get more depressed, and then the doctor adds either a different antidepressant, or an SNR and a serotonin. There's serotonin reuptake inhibitors. There's also SNRIs, norepinephrine raisers. They raises your norepinephrine. They give like all kinds of drugs which have their interactions and their depletions and their side effects, but that's not what's needed.
Hey guys, studies are showing that 68% of people that watch podcasts regularly don't click the subscribe button. Do me a huge favor. If you like this content, click subscribe so other people know where to go for the cool stuff. Thank you.
First of all, mood is determined by a lot of different things. You know, we can be in a bad mood because somebody said something to us. That's one thing. But we can be more sensitive to that because, let's say, we've had trauma in our life. So we actually have post-traumatic stress disorder that needs to be treated. So that's something else. We could have a hormonal imbalance. We can have a thyroid problem. We can have, which is a hormone. Female hormones, particularly because women cycle, and during PMS, the estrogen dips, and so they don't feel so good. So all of these things need to be checked out by the doctor, and I do check these things out, but I can buy a lot of time by starting off just addressing these neurotransmitters, giving them the right amino acids to raise the specific neurotransmitter. And people can learn very quickly how to do this themselves, because I really want people to be autonomous. They don't have to call me every time they have a problem. People can learn, your audience here can learn what amino acids to use, when, how to use them. And in my practice, that buys me time. Then I can do some lab tests. I can look under the hood. I can look at thyroid, adrenals, sex hormones, whatever, look for infection, all of that. But in the meantime, they're not suffering because the final common pathway are the neurotransmitters.
So if somebody has an issue and their diet's off, they're not getting the right amino acids, they don't have the right cofactors to create the neurotransmitters to help them think and feel good, then no matter what they try, they're probably not going to have as good a success or any success at all. Is that kind of right?
That's exactly right. It's so funny. People come to me and I'll give you a case example. A woman came to me a couple of months ago, 50-year-old woman, who said she's been depressed, anxious, and suicidal a lot of her life. And she was now 50. She was in an untenable living arrangement that she felt was abusive but couldn't get out of it, and was really kind of miserable. And I said, well, I'm going to start you on some amino acids. And she said, I don't think that's going to help. I mean, I have a serious problem. These are, I'm willing to try. I heard you do good things, but I don't really think so. Anyway, 3 weeks later, she tells me, I so appreciate what you've done for me. I feel so different and I'm making big changes in my life.
Beautiful. So just getting the proper building blocks allowed her to see her life differently and make changes?
Right. So she was actually looking into some solutions to her living situation. When she was feeling, and people kind of forget, sometimes I have to remind them. When they're starting to feel anxious, I say take some GABA or take some theanine. These are the calming neurotransmitter precursors of the calming amino acids. So it's really simple, and it works. And I have to say another one. I just have to tell you another one. I know you could ask me a question.
No, I love it. Everybody loves wonderful case studies.
A friend called me the other night and she said, "Oh my God, I pigged out on sugar last night. I was at a party and then I had some cake that was left over. There was birthday cake left over in my fridge and I ate it." She said, "I'm wrecked. I'm not functioning and I have so much to do today. I don't know what I'm going to do." She just was telling me about it. She wasn't thinking I was going to solve it. And I said, "Take some glutamine." And she said, "I have some." I said, "Yeah, I know. I told you to take it years ago. Remember?" So she took some glutamine. She called me that night. She said, "You saved me." She said, "I took the glutamine." She took 1,000 milligram glutamine, put it under her tongue. You open the capsule, put it under your tongue, let it absorb like that. And she was fine. She did everything she had to do that day. She was normal. And she was so grateful. And that's how it is. It's that simple. And same with alcohol and hangovers. You can have a hangover and take some glutamine under your tongue and it clears up. And it actually stops people from drinking when people are concerned about their drinking and they're craving alcohol more than they think they ought to. Just taking some glutamine under your tongue, it goes to the brain, and the brain, it acts like blood sugar in the brain. It raises your blood sugar, and that's what's really going on. So we're really sophisticated chemistry sets.
I love this. I've heard you say that all addictive behavior activates the reward pathways for firing dopamine. Is that linked to what you just said in any way?
Yes. People who are particularly addicted to dopamine have what's called reward deficiency syndrome, which was coined by Dr. Kenneth Blum many, many years ago. And he actually can show the genetics of it. So people have certain genes are more prone to reward deficiency syndrome. And these are people who have ADD, ADHD, thrill-seeking behavior, the little boys who climb trees in a really dangerous way and have their mothers like freaking out. Those are hyperactive, all of that. That is self-stimming because they have to create their own reward. And when you give them something that makes dopamine for them, like tyrosine, that will really, actually tyrosine, which is a stimulant, calms them down. But you also can give them GABA, which is a calmer, and some of them do better with theanine. I mean, we play around with it. We have options. But it's just amazing how you can change thoughts, feelings, and behaviors just with amino acids that go right to your brain and do their job like that, like so fast. The SSRIs, for example, take 6 weeks to kick in because they're doing some complicated chemistry and actually messing with your brain. They're making brain changes. And that's why it's so hard to get off of these medications. Whereas when you give the amino acids, it's instant. There's no wait time, no delay.
And these are basically naturally occurring things. They have a high safety profile. Can you talk about that? I mean, I know there's some areas where you have to be concerned about mixing this and that, and obviously drug interactions in certain cases.
You're right. So if you're taking an SSRI and you're giving a serotonin precursor, which could be L-tryptophan or 5-HTP, and those operate a little differently. They're on the same pathway. So tryptophan turns into 5-HTP, and it goes down the chain till it becomes serotonin, which then becomes melatonin and helps you to sleep. So if you have a glitch along the way there, you're going to have trouble sleeping. So when you're taking it if you already are taking an SSRI, which has depleted your serotonin, and you need serotonin, and in fact, if someone's on an SSRI, they probably should be taking extra serotonin. But the real thing is, I will put these people on some tryptophan or 5-HTP 6 hours away from the drug. Because if they mix together, there's the theoretical possibility of something called serotonin syndrome. You get too much serotonin. But in truth, I haven't seen it. You mostly will see it when you mix various serotonin, SSRIs, SNRIs, and so on, when you mix the drugs. But if you mix a drug with a nutrient and take them a few hours apart, you're not going to get yourself into trouble.
And you usually recommend maybe 6 hours apart?
Yeah, I'm conservatively 6 hours apart. They can get away with less, but we want to be conservative and careful.
Absolutely. Safety first. Absolutely.
So to get off the drug anyway.
Yeah. You are such a pioneer in this area. Can you talk about what it was like to realize that there was a huge need and a place for nutrition in nourishing the brain and having the brain be healthy in relationship to mood and behavior? Because when you were starting to do this decades ago, it wasn't a common thing. What was that like for you?
Well, what's interesting is I really got it about blood sugar. I mean, 40 years ago, anyway, I was working out of my home. I remember a number of instances where somebody came in and they were flying off the wall, like really not present, not able to interact. And I said, "When did you eat last?" "Oh, well, I skipped breakfast and I didn't eat today." So I'm in my home, right? So I have a home office. I go to the fridge, get some cheese or an apple or something, give them something to eat, and they're changed. They become present, and they're surprised, like, "Oh my God, that's so like, I feel so different." And then I had somebody to work with. They weren't bouncing off the walls. So that's, it was just really observation. And I was following some people like Abram Hoffer, who it was a genius, wonderful psychiatrist who was never accepted by the APA. But his work, he took chronic schizophrenics, gave them vitamin C and niacin, which is B3, and got them out of. He was the head of a very large provincial, this was in Canada, psychiatric institution for chronic schizophrenics. He got many of them out of the hospital. They were there for life. They were lifers. But giving them high-dose vitamin C and B3 got them out. And that was because they actually had a vitamin deficiency disease.
I remember seeing video of the actress Margot Kidder talking about how her life was saved by his work. And the term orthomolecular psychiatry, can you tell us what that means? Where did it get started? Why is it important?
That was coined by Abram Hoffer and Humphrey Osmond. And it means straight, orthomolecular, straight molecules, the right molecules in the right place. You get your molecules going in the right direction, and you can make enormous changes. You can correct the imbalance. So we're talking about people that have imbalance, and we determine what the imbalance is, repair it, replete it, and voila, you have a person who has a normally functioning brain. And what Abram Hoffer used to say is, if you're living on your own, paying taxes, and I think that's it, living externally, living in the community and paying taxes, that's what he was aiming for. And these people just joined normal society. So it was really kind of miraculous. And the APA would not accept his work. It was excellent research, well written, but that was going against the establishment, the standard of care. Now, I have a real problem with standard of care medicine. It's totally, not just in psychiatry, but it's totally directed to looking at symptoms and then covering over the symptoms with drugs. But then there are side effects, so you need other drugs for the side effects. And all of this time, what you're doing is making some changes in the body, changes in the chemistry that are not good. There are times, but there's a time and a place for prescriptions, but not the way they're done right now.
So first and foremost, if we can fix a problem with good nutrition, a few safe targeted supplements, we're probably better off than taking a prescription that likely has one effect and a lot of side effects.
Correct. And the doctors don't warn you. When they put you on these prescriptions, it's really, really hard to get off them. And they'll take people off, either take them off abruptly, and what happens, it's horrible. If somebody's been on an SSRI, taken off abruptly, the brain has changed. It has decreased the number of receptors for serotonin. It's just not functioning normally, and you take that away, they relapse worse than they were before. And then the doctor says, see, I told you, you were going to relapse. You better get back on the drug.
Or a patient takes themselves off because they can't stand it, and then they run into trouble.
Right. And it's really sad. I've had people tell me, oh yeah, last time I went off medication, I suffered for a whole year. And they didn't have to suffer. The way I do it, and people who practice like me do, is we add in the amino acids gradually, and not at the same, they don't take them at the exact same time, spaced apart from the drug. And you're building up the neurotransmitter machinery. And then once you've built that up, you start to reduce the drug. And you can get off it in a few months, and sometimes sooner. And that's the way to do it. That's, following nature. You do it gradually. You're respecting the brain and the body and the body's chemistry. And it absolutely works.
That's beautiful. I love that. And it makes so much sense. Let's look at some of the neurotransmitters and what their role is in the body. You had mentioned dopamine. I love dopamine, the molecule of more. I learned so much about that neurotransmitter from that book. But so that's energy, drive, enthusiasm, reward, confidence, ambition. So some of the questions that you ask when you're doing your intake form, they're targeting that.
Right. And focus.
Mm-hmm. And then you talk about serotonin, which is more self-esteem, flexibility, mellowness, humor, sleep. So that also shows up on your
anxiety. People who are low in serotonin have the munchies. They're always wanting to eat something. So when you have enough serotonin, you've experienced more satiety. You feel full. You've eaten and you're full and you're good.
It's the feel good here and now hormone, yes? Right. Neurotransmitter.
It is.
And then GABA is the calmer, so that has to do with muscle tension, relaxation, sleep, the ability to cope with stress.
Right. And people who feel overwhelmed. Now, most of us experience this at some point during the day. Like, oh my God, there's so much to do. And the way we're living right now is not so conducive to being calm and relaxed. But if we take some GABA, and for some people, theanine raises GABA better than GABA raises GABA, then the overwhelm kind of sorts itself out and people feel calmer and they're able to be more productive. Because overwhelm is not a productive feeling. You get stressed and you can't really function so well. So all of this is to normalize you, to make you the way you ought to be functioning.
I love L-theanine. You talked about that being a more recently discovered
Right.
compound from green tea.
Yeah.
And I've taken it before. It is very relaxing.
Yeah. So I have people take it at bedtime if they have trouble sleeping, or even during the day if they tend to have anxiety. And it works. And I use a combination. There are a lot of combination products that have GABA and theanine in them. So that, is kind of a 1-2 punch. I also recommend putting them under your tongue if you're really in a hurry to get a result.
And you always start low and just gently work your way up so that less likely anybody's going to have an issue with something. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. Yes.
And how important is it to choose what company you purchase amino acid products from?
It's a good point. A lot of people are shopping on Amazon, and there may be some good stuff there, but you don't know, even if it's a good, like a professional brand, and the really good professional brands don't usually show up there, but you don't know how it's been treated. I send my patients to Full Script because everything is kept temperature controlled. And it's not going to be expired. And what's in it is what's in it, what says on the label. So, on Amazon, there are also a lot of fakes.
Yes,
I like Amazon like everyone else, but you have to, with something that you're putting inside your body, you really need to be very, very careful.
I think it was Metagenics that launched a probe or a study or something. They had gotten a bunch of complaints on their product, and they found out that they were ordering it from Amazon, and it actually wasn't the product, although it looked like it.
It was a good fake.
Yeah.
There are some very good fakes. Good being that they pass as the real thing, but the fact is they're not the real thing.
But it's bottled to make it look like it came from the company.
Exactly.
So that's nobody likes to be prey to that.
Counterfeit. It's called counterfeit.
Yeah. And then you talk about the endorphins, which if those are out of whack, then people experience more physical and emotional pain, perhaps, than the rest of us.
People who cry more easily, like comfort foods, seeking comfort all the time. They feel kind of needy. That's when you're low in endorphins. You need comfort. And there are amino acids for that too. Phenylalanine there's D-phenylalanine and DL-phenylalanine. The D-phenylalanine is a bit stronger in that respect, but it's harder to come by. So you can get it on Full Script, the DPA. Lidkey makes it. It's called Endorphagen. Or you can do DLPA, which is made by a lot of other companies. And that will really help raise your endorphins. And for people who are feeling just kind of lonely and hypersensitive and tearful, it really makes a difference. So
how difficult is it for somebody in the United States, or even let's talk about worldwide, but to find somebody that is knowledgeable and skilled about helping somebody kind of put the pieces together? And is it something that the average person can pick up a book, yours or another one that you recommend, to figure this stuff out? I know you've said very wonderfully that this is not brain surgery, but obviously it takes some care and some thoughtfulness. So what resources does the average person go to unpack this?
Well, I can actually give you a list of books that you can put on your website.
Okay.
Where people can actually explore further, including a booklet that I put together called Reclaim Your Brain. Okay. So we can do all of that.
Okay, we can put that in the show notes for sure.
Show notes, yeah.
And put it on my website, or they can go to your website. What books or resources of yours would you like to tell people about?
That's in Natural Highs is actually an old book. I wrote it in 2002 with Patrick Holford, who's an English nutritionist, very well known. And that talks about all the amino acids. And it's obviously an old book, but it still works. It's still valid because human brains work the same now as they did then. So that's Natural Highs really covers all of that. I even covered psychedelics at that time, which wasn't so much in vogue as they are now, but they've actually become mainstream. So that's interesting. And that's another adjunct of therapy that, not the topic for today, but it's very useful.
Well, I actually did want to ask you about your amazing itty bitty guide to cannabis. What inspired you to write it? I mean, I'm very familiar with the endocannabinoid system and how it's kind of a lock and key system that nature provided for us. What are your comments on that?
Well, I became very interested in CBD, not so much THC. I left THC to the doctors who prescribe at dispensaries. CBD is over the counter with just maybe a trace of THC, but if it's less than 0.3%, it can be over the counter. And I actually have a CBD company called Dr. Cass's Hemp, and that's at drcass.com. We can put it in the resources as well. Again, it's not the topic for today, but CBD is a very good mood regulator. Because it governs the endocannabinoid system, and the endocannabinoid system connects all the different systems, including the neurotransmitters and the hormones and the immune system. So it's kind of an kind of an adjuster, moderator, modulator, and I really like CBD. I think THC has a place as well, therapeutically, but I don't get into that as much. So the itty bitty book of cannabis is more about CBD. And it is an itty bitty, it's a very small book. I like my PDF, the Reclaim Your Brain ebook. So that's going to be available. I'll make it available. So for free, actually, to your listeners. So
fantastic.
I'll give you a link.
So what kind of response have you gotten from colleagues? I mean, I know you do keynote speeches all over the place. Has it been mostly favorable? Have there been some critics? What has the journey been like for you?
That's a funny question. I've been asked that a lot over the years, and it's like, I don't know. But my colleagues, which are other psychiatrists, don't go to the meetings that I go to. They go to the formal APA, which I find kind of boring. Because I remember the thing that turned me off to never go back was they were talking about how it showed low serotonin levels in people who were depressed. It was a very elaborate study. But they never said, well, how are we going to replete this serotonin? Like, what about giving serotonin to actually make that brain work better and stop the depression? They didn't do that. They just, it's a lot of shuffling molecules and a lot of words and a lot of publishing and a lot of drugs. Very much a lot of drugs. And my position on drugs. So I unabashedly say, just be really careful about your doctor drug pusher, because that's how they're trained. It's like, oh, it's a real depression, you need a real antidepressant, or you need a real anti-anxiety drug, but then try to get off them. It's hell. And they stop working, so you want to get off them, but you can't. So then you have to find somebody, and that was one of your questions, how do you find somebody? Good question. I will look for resources. There aren't a lot of us. I mean, this is crazy because I've been doing it for 40 years. Christina Veselak teaches a course. So for practitioners who want to learn how to do it, she gives an excellent course. And all of this will be in the show notes. So
Beautiful.
people can come back and look at them.
Beautiful. Yeah, there still is a huge, I mean, as much as you're doing, as many books as you've written, as many talks as you've given at conferences, there's still a significant gap in need.
Huge gap. I mean, as I said, people come to see me, so they know that I'm doing natural stuff. Will say, I'm not so sure. Like, maybe I need a drug. And you have to try it to believe it, or see someone in your family respond to believe it. And then it's like, whoa, this stuff works. That's crazy, but it works. And the other thing is, people can take a free-form amino product. There are a number of products on the market. I think we could add that too. We can add a lot, actually, to the show notes. How to get what kind of free-form aminos, and they can order that from Full Script. So,
but don't you need a health professional to get hooked up with a Full Script account?
Well, I can tell them how to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay. So if you had a loudspeaker and the whole world was listening, what would you like to say?
I'd like to say that controlling your mental health is not rocket science. It's science. It's basic science, basic nature. You can actually take control of your mind, mood, and behavior, and done through amino acids. And then, as you mentioned earlier, cofactors. So you need to eat your fruits and vegetables and grains, because you need vitamins and minerals as well to help make the neurotransmitters. It's like baking a cake. You need to have a lot of different ingredients to make it work. So when you know the recipe, when you know how to make your neurotransmitters, it's so empowering. It's like amazing. And these are not prescription. You can get them yourself. You can buy them yourself and learn how to use them.
And just off the cuff, a couple of other books. You said Natural Highs, either a book that you've written or someone else that you recommend.
Right. Christina wrote Eat. That'll be in the show notes.
Okay. I'm guessing Julia Ross's books, possibly?
Oh, right. The Mood Cure and the Diet Cure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. I love to ask my guests this. If you were to go back and talk to 10-year-old Hyla, what would you say to her?
Oh, my. Well, at 10 years old, I thought I was going to be a doctor. And my father, who was a doctor, used to, when I was really little, before I started school, my dad used to take me on calls with him, and he used to take me to the hospital. So I was very comfortable with the whole medical world, and he had his office at home. So to me, it was exciting and interesting, and he used to talk to me about cases. I mean, it was kind of interesting. So by 10, it was like, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. So I would say, keep it up. You're on the right path, and you're going to make a difference.
Your patients must love the amount of focused attention they get from you, because I don't think most patients' experience with doctors is that. Do you get that feedback a lot?
Well, interesting. Because I am responsive. What I do is they text me if they're having a question. I have people trial each amino acids. So they're testing it under their tongue, and then they'll gradually increase the dose and see how they're feeling. So if they run into a question like, oh, I've done 4 already and nothing's happening, what do I do? So texting, I just text right back, or anything like that. I'm available, and nobody abuses it. No one takes advantage in a bad way. And I like being available. And I check in with everybody once a week. And it can be a short check-in, but I want to make sure they're on track. And it works.
Well, I'm so grateful for you taking time out of your busy schedule to share this piece of medicine that's so important. How to naturally with food and amino acids and proper supplements, give this beautiful organ what it needs so that we can think, feel, react the way our brains are designed to optimally.
Right. Oh, and the one thing I left out, and that is essential fatty acids, because our brain cells, we're fatheads. Our brain cells are made out of fat, and the receptor sites that pick up the neurotransmitters, that gets the message, lands in the cell membrane. So we want to have a cell membrane that's nice and flexible, that's not brittle. So when we have the wrong balance of essential fatty acids, if we're deficient in omega-3s, and we have too many omega-6s or seed oils, we have a brittle cell membrane that's not going to be so good at picking up the neurotransmitter messages. If, on the other hand, we have the right amount of omega-3s, then we have a nice, pliable cell membrane that is receptive, that works, that picks up the message. And I've been working with a company that measures your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. It's supposed to be under 3 to 1. And I'm telling you, I've had people who thought they were so healthy. They were taking essential fatty acids. They were taking the right ones and the right amounts. And they thought for sure they're going to be great. We did the it's a blood spot test. You do it at home. You prick your finger, drop some blood on a blotter, send it to this very special lab in Norway, and you get your result back. And this guy who thought he was like golden ended up having a ratio, instead of being 3 to 1 or less, it was 17 to 1. And he was mortified. He said that, no, I eat healthy. I take all my essential fatty acids. Something's wrong. So he started to take this balance oil. And after a few months, which is the turnover time of a red blood cell, his ratio came down from 17 to 1 to under 3.1, under 3 to 1. And he was feeling better. So it's not just a number, it's how he was feeling. He was able to focus better. He had more energy. It really made a difference. It made a clinical difference. And you're actually moving from an inflammatory state to an anti-inflammatory state. We need some inflammation. You know, inflammation is a protective response, but we don't want to have total body inflammation. So
we don't want inflammaging.
Right. That's exactly right.
And the standard American pathetic diet is too prone to inflammaging.
Exactly. So if you want to prevent yourself from inflammaging, measure, test, don't guess. You know, we take a lot of supplements and we don't always know that they're working. Sometimes we can feel them, and we're like the aminos, you can feel them. And if you don't feel them, talk to me. You know, I tell my patients, if you're not feeling anything, let's check how you're testing them, how you're using them, and so on. So I don't really use lab tests to measure amino acids. It's actually better to measure them by what they're doing clinically to you. But I do think that we need a test, because you can't know your ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 on your own. And we'll put that in your show notes as well.
Okay, very good. Well, Hyla, I adore you. Thank you for being a pioneer.
It's very mutual. I love your show and the contribution you're making. You do amazing interviews, and I've really enjoyed this one.
Oh, thank you, Hyla. Love you. So, folks, if you got value out of this, share this with people who, like you, could use the information. Send us a comment, and of course, subscribe so other people can more easily find it. And we'll see you on the next episode of Next Level Healing. This podcast is intended for the purpose of providing information and education. It does not provide advice and is not meant to be used for any self-diagnosis or the replacement of any kind of licensed professional. The creators and individuals appearing here do not endorse any specific tests, positions, medications, products, or procedures. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.